What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to kick off my official 2025 college football predictions for the upcoming 2025 college football season. We kick them off with the Ohio State Buckeyes, the team that, of course, won it all last year in 2024 in the first ever 12-team playoff. Now, the Buckeyes did not make it to the Big Ten Championship last year, but that, of course, didn't really matter. They got in as an at-large team, and they went all the way to the national championship and, of course, won it, and finished with an overall record of 14-2. So a great season last year for Ohio State. Looking at the 2025 now. First, just some thoughts on this team before we get into the actual prediction for the Buckeyes. You look at this roster, you probably can say that they're going to take a bit of a step back from where they were last year with the amount of losses on both sides of the football, but I think everything's going to be just about the same. It's definitely going to be new players that are going to have to step up right away. You got Julian Sanin taking over at quarterback for Will Howard. I don't know if he'll be as good as Will Howard was from last year, but I think he's going to be pretty good. I'm not really concerned about any position whatsoever on both sides of the football for Ohio State. You look at the running backs, they lost Quayshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson. Yeah, those are big losses there for Ohio State, but they definitely should be really good at running the football still. Offensive line, I think it's going to be probably a pretty good offensive line. Not one of the best in the country, but definitely an offensive line that'll be pretty talented. At wide receiver, though, that's probably the strength of this offense, is definitely that wide receiver position. You got Jeremiah Smith coming back at wide receiver, probably one of the best wide receivers in all of college football last year, and they also got Cardinal Tate back there as well, so they're pretty loaded at wide receiver almost every year. Defensively, it's going to be probably a different defensive team compared to last year. I think they actually lost their defensive coordinator, so I think they have a first-year defensive coordinator, so maybe this defense won't be as good as it was from last year, but it's going to get better and better as we go down through the stretch of the season. But that's just my thoughts on Ohio State. Let's now get to the schedule for 2025, and here is that schedule. Again, the Buckeyes last year were 14-2, so let's go game by game, and I'll give you my official record prediction for this Ohio State team, and we'll also do this for every single Power 4 team. And we start here with that first game of the season, and it's a big one. It's at home against Texas on August the 30th. Texas obviously going to be kind of similar to Ohio State. It's kind of like a lot of new faces on the roster on both sides of the football, but you got already Arch Manning, a quarterback that definitely, that will step up right away here for Texas. And, you look at these two teams. Obviously, it's a rematch from the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic in the semifinal. Ohio State won that game by 13 points. The Buckeyes definitely were clearly the better team, especially on the offensive side of the football. And that defense gave all kinds of problems to Texas's offense last year. This game right here, again, it really kind of is a game that sets the tone here for the rest of the season. I think the winner of this game probably, goes on to their conference championship, or maybe, the loser probably this game doesn't make it to their conference championship, but then they probably still make the college football playoff. This is a home game here for the Buckeyes. It's one of the biggest games of week one, and it's definitely one of the biggest games of all of college football this year for coming up for 2025. I've had a very tough time predicting this game. I'll say that right now. This is one of the toughest games to predict, to start these predictions, in my opinion. But now we're finally here. I think it's going to be a low-scoring defensive game like it always, not really always is. I would say this is going to be a low-scoring defensive game. Again, you got two different quarterbacks, but I think there are two pretty, even defensive teams. The wide receiver position, I would definitely favor Ohio State here, and plus, they have the home field advantage, but I'm trying to, not, choose the home team every time when it comes to, predicting a tough game this year in these predictions. Again, this is going to be a pretty tough game to predict, but I'm going to be picking it right now, and I'm going to say that Texas wins this one. I think Texas does get the win here. It's a game that really comes down to the wire between these two teams, and I think it's going to really come down to whoever the better quarterback is that I trust, and I do trust Arch Manning a little bit more definitely than Julian Sain. Again, we don't really know how good Julian Sain is going to be once we get into this game against Texas. We'll find out how he plays, and I've never seen him play before, so I do trust Arch Manning and the Texas Longhorn offense a little bit more than the Ohio State offense in this one. And with that being said, I'm going to be picking the Longhorns to win this game. So I got the Buckeyes starting off 0-1, but then they take care of business in their next 2 games. They'll play Grambling State on September 6th. They win that one easily. And then they play Ohio Bobcats on September 13th. I think they win that one pretty easily as well. And that puts them at 2-1 going into Big Ten play. They actually get a bye week before playing out west in Washington. They'll play this one on September the 27th. Very tough place to play. Washington, I think, is going to be a pretty solid team. And I think they're going to be a little bit better this year under Jed Fish in their second year as the head coach under him. Again, Washington doesn't have a lot of playmakers, but they do have some, guys that can step up for them. I think Washington kind of gives Ohio State a little bit of problems maybe in the first quarter, but I think the Buckeyes definitely will pull away in this one. And this is the first road game here for Julian Sayin as a quarterback here for the Buckeyes, but I think he kind of gets used to the road environment here, and I think Ohio State pulls away from Washington. They win this game, and they improve to 3-1. Next game will be at home against Minnesota on October the 4th. Kind of a sneaky Minnesota team that I think will be pretty solid. This is a Golden Gopher team that'll definitely run the football here. Minnesota going to try to waste the clock down and keep that Ohio State offense off the field for as long as possible. But it's a home game here for the Buckeyes. If it was at Minnesota, I would definitely give the Golden Gophers a chance. But I think Ohio State takes care of business here. Maybe it's close there for a little while, but I think Ohio State will pull away. And they win this one by at least like double digits, so by about a couple of touchdowns. Let's just put it that way. Next game on the road at Illinois on October the 11th. This is going to be a tough one here for the Buckeyes. Illinois is a team that's getting a lot of hype this year. They had a great season last year with a 10-win season, and they have a lot of experience coming back. Luke Allmeyer returns at quarterback. We saw how decent of a quarterback he could be for this Illinois team. Illinois, this is a very tough place to play. It's on the road. I wouldn't be surprised here if Illinois did pull off an upset here, but I'm not going to be predicting that here in this one. So I'm going to say that the Buckeyes win this one, but I think it probably goes into the fourth quarter, and then probably Ohio State maybe forces a turnover, and then they probably pull away. And I'm going to say they win by at least 10 points. So I'm going to say that Ohio State gets a late turnover, and then they probably change the difference. They get a touchdown, and then probably a late field goal to, win this one by double digits. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if Illinois did pull off the upset here. But I got the Buckeyes improving to 5-1. Then they play at Wisconsin on October 18th. So they got back-to-back road games here with Illinois and Wisconsin. Kind of tough, but I don't really think Wisconsin is going to be that great this year. I think they'll be solid as a team. They could be like a bowl-eligible type team this year, but I just don't think they have the roster really to compete with the Buckeyes. And the Buckeyes could come off like a pretty difficult game against Illinois. They could be probably a little worn out from that, and they have to go back on the road here the next week. But I think Ohio State, let's say they start off slow. And, maybe in the first half it's kind of a close game, but I think second half the Buckeyes definitely will pull away, and they get the win here on the road at Wisconsin, and that puts them at 6-1. They get a bye week before playing the big one against Penn State. They will play this one at home. Another team that has a bunch of experience coming back. Is this finally the year that Penn State finally gets over the hump and they finally beat the Buckeyes of Ohio State? Well, it is at home here for the Buckeyes. It's going to be a big game here in the month of November. It's always a big game when these two teams play. Penn State had so many opportunities last year to beat Ohio State, but this time, playing at home, I think that's going to be a little bit more trickier here for the Nittany Lions. I think it will be a close game. It probably could be a shootout. It could go two different ways. One way, it could probably be a shootout. It could be a defensive battle, but I'm probably going to say it's the second way. I think it's going to be a defensive battle, and I do trust Ohio State's defense a little bit more. Penn State's going to have a defensive coordinator that's going to be a little bit different, and they do lose some guys on the defensive line that I think Ohio State will probably take advantage of running the football as well. So I think Ohio State beats Penn State here. I'm going to say, though, by only like 4 or so maybe like 3 points, somewhere in that range. I think it really comes down to who can force the most turnovers as well. But I got the Buckeyes beating Penn State once again, so that puts the Buckeyes now at 7-1. They play at Purdue after that on on November 8th. I think Ohio State wins this one pretty easily. Don't really see this one being all that close. Purdue is just not going to be very good this year. I know Barry Odom has taken over, but I just don't really think he has what it takes to start off this brand new era for Purdue. I don't think it's going to be a really good start, so I got the Buckeyes winning that one. Then they play UCLA on November 15th. This will be a home game for the Buckeyes. I think UCLA will be a little bit better this year. You know, they added Nico Amaliava in the transfer portal, but I don't think he is going to be the quarterback that'll definitely develop right away for UCLA. And plus, you know, remember, Nico Amaliava is very familiar with this Ohio State team. Lost to them in Columbus last year in the playoff semifinal, but I got the Buckeyes winning this one fairly easily, maybe by like 17 or 20 points, and that puts the Buckeyes now at 9-1. Rutgers at home on November 22nd is next. This is also kind of a team similar to Minnesota. They'll probably run the football in this game, try to waste the clock down, but I don't think that's really going to be enough for the Scarlet Knights. I think the Rutgers actually will be a solid team, but definitely not on the level of the talent for the Buckeyes, so I think Ohio State wins this one, and they improved to 10-1. And then they close things out with the game on the road at Michigan on November 29th. So, as you guys know, Michigan has beaten Ohio State now in the last 4 years. Can Ohio State finally get over the hump, and can they beat Michigan here for the first time? Really since 2019, because they did not play each other in 2020 during the COVID season. And yeah, Michigan, has been dominating the series as of late. And, I know a lot of people are going to say that Michigan has cheated, in these games, but I feel like last year they didn't really cheat. Michigan was just overall the better team, and they were definitely the more physical team. It's just the physicality of this Michigan team that I just really... this Ohio State team just has so many problems with them. Ever since Ryan Day came in here, yeah, he won the first game when he was here at, Ohio State, but Michigan, ever since that time, they've just been the more completely team, and they also been the more dominant team as of late. So, yeah, Michigan here, I think they're kind of back to where they used to be. A couple years ago, this team won the national championship. It was definitely a step back of the year for them, but Michigan still beat Ohio State in Columbus, and I don't think anybody expected that. This is going to be another close game. I think it's probably going to be a low-scoring defensive game. It really comes down to probably the quarterbacks in this one. And I think Julian Saint is probably better by this time, but really, Bryce Underwood could be better by this time. A freshman quarterback coming in for Michigan. And I think Michigan's run play, I think Michigan's running the football probably is a little bit better than Ohio State's. They probably take advantage of that, but, it's really going to come down to who can force the most turnovers. I think this is another close game, but at the end of the day, though, I think home field advantage probably is the difference here. In Ann Arbor, I think Michigan defeats Ohio State here in a close game. So I think Michigan beats Ohio State for the 5th consecutive year in a row. I don't feel confident with this prediction, but again, it's just the physicality of this Michigan team. They're a physical team, and they just have been giving Ohio State a lot of problems in the last, 4 games. So yeah, Michigan, I think they win that game. So I got the Buckeyes finishing with a record of 10-2. I definitely could see the Buckeyes go 11-1, but I don't know if they can go 12-0. It definitely would be like a miracle if they do go 12-0, to be honest. But I think they probably can split the Texas and Michigan game. It wouldn't surprise me if they go 11-1. Let's say they lose to Texas, but beat Michigan on the, or actually, beat Michigan on the road. But then let's say they lose. Let's say they beat Texas, and then they probably lose to Michigan at the end of the year. That's still going to give you 11-1. But I wouldn't be surprised if they probably lost to Illinois or Penn State, and they could probably lose, one of those 2 games as well. But I don't really think Ohio State's going to go 9-3. That's just really not like Ohio State in the years under Ryan Day and the history of this program. But I got the Buckeyes, though, finishing 10-2. And like I said, their best case scenario probably 11-1. Worst case, probably 9-3. But that is what my prediction is here for the Buckeyes. So let me guys know what you think about my official prediction here for Ohio State. Give me your prediction on this Ohio State team down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.